What is up, and welcome to Not Another CFB Pod, a part of the Coda Sports Gambling Network. I am cold. I'm not going to lie, guys. It's been a crappy first week of the bowl season. This is the bowl special part 2, though. It's a new week. We got lots and lots of games to go through, and some good games. You know, that first week, it was fun, but not a lot of marquee matchups, not a lot of games that everyone's, telling their dad, hey, change the channel. We got to catch this bowl game. But this week, we got some of those, and that's what I'm really excited about. Obviously, I've got my OU shirt on. We're going to be breaking down that one. This is the part 2, as I mentioned. This is the 23rd of December to the 29th of December. All the bowl games in there. Going to be touching on those on today's show. Going to be breaking them down. I'm going to change it a little bit. I'm going to give you guys my leans, but I'm not necessarily going to give out picks, because what I noticed is by the time, especially later in the week, as we got to those games, the lines had moved so much that I found myself even on other sides of bets when I was writing my articles on codasportscappers.com and putting them out on Twitter, like the under for the Army game. Loved that in the bowl preview podcast, and then it came around and the line had jumped, I think 4 points, maybe 5, and I was like, you know what, I'm taking this over. And obviously it went under. I mean, that's just how the gambling has been right now. I'm officially on fade watch, and if you do want to fade me, I do not feel bad. Like it doesn't. I know what it is. I'm cold right now. I'm gonna snap out of it eventually. I am happy because we did hit the Idaho Potato Bowl bet, and like to see that. A lot of points in that one. Told you Kent State overs. I mean, I'm glad we got one last one in there. Before we get into the bowls, I want to get a quick word in from our sponsor. Not Another CFB Pod is sponsored by Rogue Energy. Rogue Energy is an alternative to sugary energy drinks that can make you get a boost of energy and crash quickly, while also putting a lot of sugar in your body. Rogue Energy comes in 4 unique product lines to best suit your personal needs. Their low-calorie, no-sugar energy formula is the perfect alternative to sugar-filled canned energy drinks and sodas. Their extreme formula provides the most energy, focus, and sports performance possible. Their hydration line offers focus ingredients without the added caffeine. You drink it anytime you're thirsty. Finally, their shake formula is a delicious, zero-calorie energy milkshake. The thing that also makes Rogue Energy unique from the other powdered drinks is that it dissolves really well, and you won't have any of those chalky textures in your drink. With over 10 different flavors to choose from, we at the Coda Sports Gambling Network definitely recommend Rogue Energy. Go to rogueenergy.com and use the promo code CODA to receive 10% off your order. Again, it's rogueenergy.com and use the promo code CODA, K-O-T-A. All right, guys, so why not? Let's get into it. As I said earlier, the picks have been cold. I'm not going to lie. This podcast will mostly just be a preview. We're going to be talking about these games. If there's any interesting things, we're going to talk about opt-outs that we've already known about. One big thing when you're betting bowl games is knowing, what these teams are going to look like when they take the field. You obviously need to know, too, do they want to be at that bowl? Are they excited to play there? We've got one coming up on this first day that I have some questions about. And so we'll get into that, and we're just going to break down these bowls. If I have any leans early, I'll let you guys know. And then obviously check Twitter. That's where every day I'll be posting an article when we've got games. You may see a graphic, but just click that Coda Sports Cappers link, and you'll see all my picks there. So let's get into it. December 23rd, this is Thursday when this podcast comes out. Frisco Football Classic. It's the first time this bowl's been played. Frisco, this field was just played on very recently for the Frisco Bowl. In fact, just a couple days ago. So I'm interested to see how this field deteriorates, because in a couple weeks, we then have the FCS championship. I believe it's North Dakota State and Montana State is also being played on the same field. So we'll see how it holds up. But we have North Texas Mean Green 6-6, Miami of Ohio Redhawks at 6-6. It's going to be a bit of a stinker bowl, guys. I'm not going to lie to you. Over under of 54.5 when I looked at this, and North Texas is a 2.5 point underdog. That close to Denton, Texas, where their campus is. I got to be honest, I'm leaning a little bit at UNT. They've won 5 straight here to get here, including a huge blowout win over UTSA. That was at their home place, but it was a blowout win. And the MAC teams have still not won a game yet, guys. They've only covered one. So I don't know what to think. I know the Sharps and stuff like Miami here. I just think North Texas is going to be able to run the ball. And if I had an early lean, again, check Twitter later today. I'll have my pick out for this, but I like the over. And I also like North Texas. I think they've kind of changed up their style. They're running the ball really well. So we'll move on. We've got another game Thursday night, the Gaspirilla Bowl. UCF Knights at 8-4 and the Florida Gators at 6-6. Florida stinks this year. It's a really unique situation. Florida fired their head coach Dan Mullen. They hired Billy Napier from Lafayette. Emory Jones, the quarterback for Florida, plans to play this game, but he is in the transfer portal. So this is like his last game with Florida. I'm curious on what the motivation is going to be like. This is the first time UCF and Florida have played each other since 2006. UCF's going to be fired up. They've been doing that whole campaign where we're the best team in Florida. Basically take us seriously. We're going to the Big 12. So I'm interested to see, UCF, I think they're going to play really, really hard. I think Florida will because it's kind of a regional game and they can't afford to let UCF just rise up and beat them. But at the same time, what's the motivation like for Florida? I believe Florida's being coached by Greg Knox. He's the running backs and special teams coach. And so that's going to be an interesting part of this. Do they play hard for this guy? What's the vibe like? I believe right now the line is UCF +7, over under 55.5. If I had a lean, probably under. I don't know. UCF +7 is interesting, but Dylan Gabriel, he's been injured. He's in the transfer portal. He's obviously not going to play. He was injured anyway, but I'm interested to see how they play for Gus Malzahn. This is a weird game. Again, stay tuned for my Twitter, at Potato Gobbler. We'll have picks on this one later, but an interesting game nonetheless. Now we move on to Christmas Eve, December 24th. We've got the Hawaii Bowl. This is the Memphis Tigers at 6-6, taking on the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors at 6-7. It's always weird to see a team that played that extra game, but it's only right that it's Hawaii. Hawaii's coming off 2 straight wins. They had a close win over Colorado State at home, and then they turned around and beat Wyoming 38-14. But what's interesting is there's lots of rumors coming out of Hawaii that the players are revolting against their head coach, Todd Graham. There's reports of abuse, verbal abuse, favoritism that's going around, and these guys, maybe they don't want to play for them. But the spin on that, I think, is a lot of those guys are already in the portal. And the guys that are playing right now for Hawaii actually want to be there. How do they rally? Memphis is a good team, but they're going to be without their star wide receiver, Calvin Austin. We've talked about him earlier this season. He's a dynamic wide receiver. For Hawaii, their main quarterback, Cordero, and their star running back, Day Hunter, they're both out of the program. They're in the transfer portal. Who knows who's going to start for Hawaii? It's going to be kind of a weird game. The line right now is Memphis -8.5, over under 55.5. Probably lean Memphis 8.5, but you're getting way up there, and we know how hot the underdog has been in these bowl games. Not only that, the over has been good too. So tough to say. We'll have to check the weather on that one too. Sometimes in Hawaii it can get a little windy this time of year. We'll keep an eye on that. December 24th, I'll have a short little article coming out on that one too. Check out codasportscappers.com. Then on Christmas Day, we actually have a game on Christmas Day. I don't remember this really happening a lot, but this is the Tax Act Camellia Bowl. I think I'm saying that right. Georgia State Panthers 7-5, Ball State Cardinals at 6-6. So again, we've got a situation where we've got another MAC team in the mix, and MAC teams just haven't performed well in bowls, not just this year, but in a long time. Loving Georgia State here. I think the line is, Georgia State -6, over under at 51. Probably just slamming Georgia State here. This may be an actual pick that we just roll with on the pod, but you'll have to probably take it now when you hear this because these lines just seem to move so much. Georgia State's a really good running team. They've won 4 out of their last 5 in a really tough conference in the Sun Belt, including a win over Coastal Carolina at Coastal Carolina. It's a really good squad. Ball State, they're okay. They were just another one of those middle of the mix MAC teams that so far have not looked good in bowls. If I had a lean on the total, I would probably say over just because it's not a very high total, 51. And both these teams should be able to score a little bit, but probably leaning Georgia State Panthers here. Let's move on to December 27th, the QuickLane Bowl, Western Michigan and Nevada. This is a really interesting game because when I first looked at it and saw the line, I was thinking, man, Nevada's catching 6.5 points, plus 6.5, and they're a good Mountain West team, over under 56. But then you get to look at it. Nevada lost their head coach, Jay Norvell. He took the defensive coordinator with him, and I think the offensive coordinator too. Either way, he's gone. The running backs coach is calling the plays. Quarterback Carson Strong, the star quarterback for them, he's out. Cole Turner, he's an NFL tight end, he's out. And then they have a couple wide receivers that are in the transfer portal. They're starting right guard. And then they had an all Mountain West linebacker and cornerback that are also out. So it's just like half their team's out. I don't think they're going to be motivated for this at all. Western Michigan was a pretty good team this year. A couple bad breaks away from playing for the MAC championship. This is a tough one too. Probably leaning on the over a little bit. Interested to see what Nevada looks like at all. 6.5 points at Western Michigan seems like a lot because of how poorly MAC teams have performed so far. But an interesting game just because of all the opt-outs and things that we're going to be dealing with. But let's move on to the Military Bowl. This is Boston College Eagles 6-6 versus East Carolina Pirates 7-5. Excuse me. This is an interesting one as well. Phil Jerkovich is going to play, and he's the big name. I hope I'm saying his name right. He announced he's coming back to Boston College in 2022. The line is Boston College -3, over under 51.5. I mean, you got to be looking at that over for sure. Although Boston College has a good defense, I think they're going to score points here. Might just take my Eagles -3. Don't have a for sure pick on that. We'll look at it as we get a little bit closer and let you guys know after Christmas. We're starting to get a little bit down the road now, and these are where if you guys hear a line and you really like it, you need to take it now because, as I said, those lines just moved so much on me. After we recorded the podcast, I was kind of blown away at how much the lines had moved. In fact, it like I said, it caused me to change a few picks, which didn't work out very well. But let's move on to Tuesday, December 28th. This is a massive day for college football. We've got 5 games on that day, and we're going to start it off with the Ticket Smarter Birmingham Bowl. Gross. Houston Cougars 11-2, Auburn Tigers 6-6. Another motivational spot. How much does Auburn really want to be there? This game's playing in Birmingham, Alabama, so obviously Auburn's going to have, you would think the home crowd, but at the same time they're 6-6. Bo Nix is gone. Their running back Shivers, their wide receiver Kenyon, their safety Tennyson, their defensive end Johnson, their guard Manning, their starting corner McCreary, and they have a starter linebacker and a starter right tackle is out, and then their starting center's out after surgery. So Houston's best corner and return guy Marcus Johnson declared for the draft. He's not playing. But other than that, Houston's kind of all there. I don't know. I mean, Houston was really disappointing against Cincinnati. You kind of look at their schedule and their wins. Like, they're 11-2, but they didn't really beat anybody of, real significance. They came up against Cincinnati and looked outmatched. I'm afraid it's going to be the same thing with the Auburn Tigers. This is the SEC. The line is Auburn -2.5, over under 51.5. I don't know what Auburn's going to look like. Auburn's coming off of 4 straight losses to end their season. Of course, they played that crazy Iron Bowl matchup against Alabama and probably should have beaten them 5 different ways, but found a way to lose them all, which kind of seems like peak Auburn. Don't know what to think about this game. We're a ways away, and that's going to be a big day. We'll have a full graphic for that day with 5 games coming up, so keep your eye out for that. Going to be kind of a crazy game. I don't really have any early leans on that one either. It's going to be hard to tell. Then we move on at 2:15, the Serve Pro First Responder Bowl. This is Air Force and Louisville. Let's see. Air Force is the underdog by 1.5, over under 55.5. Service academies always play so hard in these bowl games. We know for Louisville, Malik Cunningham looks like he's going to play, the star quarterback. That's big news for the Cardinals. So it's tough to say. I mean, I really expect Air Force to be able to run the ball. I think they were the best of the service academies. I know they lost to Army in overtime, but I still feel like they had the best team. They obviously played in the Mountain West Conference and ended up 9-3, so a pretty solid year for them. If they could have beaten Army, they look a lot different, and they probably end up even in a bigger bowl than this. Louisville, I didn't like them all year, but they did, they found a way to win against the kind of the lower tier teams in the ACC, 6-6. I don't know what to think about this one either. I probably would have to take the points with Air Force, maybe just take the money line as close as it is. We'll see what this movement looks like on the line as we get closer to that game, because we got a few days to go till we get there. Then the third game of that day, the AutoZone Liberty Bowl, Mississippi State, Texas Tech. Very interesting. The Mike Leach Bowl. What's it going to be? Because Mike Leach still claims that Texas Tech owes him a couple $1 million. Mississippi State coming in 7-5, Texas Tech 6-6. Texas Tech replacing their head coach, so it's going to be kind of an interim squad. Sonny Cumbie's going to go ahead and still coach Texas Tech. That's who kind of coached them at the end of the year. They're coming off of 2 straight losses. Mississippi State was pretty solid all year. Didn't love them. They ended up 7-5 to get here. They're an air raid team that can't pass the ball, so it's kind of unique, but they should beat Texas Tech. The line is Mississippi State -9.5, over under at 59.5. Might have to look at the over. Matt had to look at one could be interesting is Mississippi State team total over. I don't know what that would be. Probably like 34 or something, but Texas Tech's defense is just so bad. We'll be interested to see how motivated Texas Tech is. The Liberty Bowl's played in Memphis, Tennessee. I did not know where the Liberty Bowl was. All right, so Memphis, Tennessee. Moving on to 7 o'clock that night, Tuesday, December 28th, UCLA versus NC State in the San Diego Credit Union Holiday Bowl, all the way over there on the West Coast. Should help UCLA. The good news about this game, guys, number one, it's a good one, and so far, everyone's going to play in this one. So that's exciting. UCLA was a team that I had a little underrated this year. I think they were good, not great. NC State, a lot of veterans. They ended up 9-3. They're number 18 in the poll coming in. Pretty darn good team. They lost to Wake by 3 points. They were right there with a bunch of teams, so this one should be really fun. The line is NC State -1, over under 59.5. Will be very interesting to keep our eye on that line and see if it moves, if we have any opt-outs, because I think the star power kind of lies with UCLA, but on average, I like the NC State players better because a lot of them are more veteran. I think they like their head coach a little more. It's a unique situation with UCLA and Chip Kelly. Can't ever tell if they like this guy or hate him. So we'll keep our eye on that. But that's a good matchup right there. The San Diego County Credit Union Holiday Bowl. Holiday Bowl is always a good one. And then we move on to the 9:15 game. This is a game I'm personally excited about because, as you guys know, I'm part of the Coda Cappers Network. We've got the West Virginia Mountaineers taking on the Minnesota Golden Gophers in the Guaranteed Rate Bowl. 9:15 Central Time. This game's going down. West Virginia comes in at 6-6. Minnesota comes in at 8-4. It's very interesting. West Virginia running back Letty Brown has opted out. The Mountaineers also lost 3 players to the transfer portal. None of them were like starting caliber players, but still, anytime you have that many guys kind of move around, it's an interesting spot because does that mean that these guys don't like the program? Is there kind of some inner turmoil going on? Minnesota had a pretty good year, but they come in pretty banged up. I think they're on their 3rd or 4th running back, but we've got B. Russ on the West Virginia side, and I may have to back with him just because Big 12, but then we've got all the Coda Cappers guys that are from, way up there north that love the Minnesota Golden Gophers too. So it'll be an interesting time for us at the network. I'm going to keep my eye on the group chat. It's going to be going crazy. That late at night, that'll be a real fun one when we have to kind of live tweet through that one and have a good time. I don't have any early leans. West Virginia is a 5-point underdog, but without Letty Brown, they were just kind of not great all year. I didn't really love anything West Virginia did. They played OU really, really close, but OU wasn't great either. So I'm not sure. I don't really have any leans early on this one, but again, keep your eye on the timeline. I'll come out with something for it. And we move on to the final day of our bowl schedule for this podcast. It's December 29th, Wednesday, and we've got 4 bowls on this day. 10 a.m. in the Wasabi Fenway Bowl, SMU versus Virginia. Very unique game. Let's see. SMU's 2.5-point underdogs. Over under 71.5. Give me a very interesting one to keep our eye on. Brocco Mendenhall did resign, so this is his last game with Virginia. But Brandon Armstrong is expected to stay and play. Love watching him play. They have 8 names in the portal, but so far we can't confirm if those guys are going to be playing or not. So it's really interesting. SMU was just on a huge downturn to end the season. In fact, they lost 4 of their last 5. So I don't know. I mean, SMU's lost their offensive coordinator, Garrett Riley, and a few other assistants. Rhett Lashley, interestingly, will be coaching this game for SMU, and he knows a lot about Virginia because he was the OC at Miami. So, this is going to be interesting. SMU's 2 top receivers have also opted out. The first lean I have is the under 71.5. I mean, if we're missing star power, if we've got guys in the transfer portal not totally bought in, 71.5, I mean, that's a huge total. We could still have a high-scoring game and not touch 70. So, I don't know. This one will be interesting. SMU was kind of a stinker at the end of the season. How do they look? Virginia, and then obviously this game's being played at Fenway Park in Boston. I hope I didn't say New York earlier. Fenway's obviously in Boston. So but it's always interesting to see a football game in a baseball field because usually like one of the end zones is kind of squished in, and we'll just have to keep our eye on that one. That'll be a fun one to watch again at 10 a.m. Central Time. Really weird time slot. But then at 1:15 p.m., we have the New Era Pinstripe Bowl. So again, another one. This is the one that's always played in Yankee Stadium. Yeah, in Bronx, New York. Very interesting. Virginia Tech Hokies 6-6. Maryland Terrapins at 6-6. A little bit of a stinker, but at least we have 2 Power 5 teams here. The line right now is Maryland 3.5-point favorites, over under 55. We can remember that Virginia Tech fired their head coach, Justin Fuente, and the Hokies have 5 starters opted out. It's a wide receiver, Trey Turner, defensive tackle, Williams, defensive end, Barno, cornerback, Waller, and offensive guard, Smith. Virginia Tech quarterback, Burmeister, is in the portal. He's not going to play. And then Maryland's had a bunch of guys jump in the portal as well, but none of them really got playing time, so it kind of seems like that whole thing that happens in locker rooms sometimes where that younger group that doesn't get to play kind of hates the older group, and eventually, they jump ship. So we'll see what Maryland looks like coming in. I think Maryland's excited to be in a bowl. They beat Rutgers big time to get bowl eligible there at the end of the season. Virginia Tech had kind of an up and down year. They're not real good. Early leans, maybe the under 55. Virginia Tech's offense stinks. Usually their defense is pretty solid. So we'll see what that line looks like when we get closer to kickoff. Then at 4:45, we've got the Cheeze-it Bowl, one of my favorite bowls of the bowl season. It seems like they're always just like either spectacularly good or spectacularly bad. We remember the Cheeze-it Bowl, which had TCU. They threw 1 million interceptions and somehow won the game. It was awesome. This time we got Clemson Tigers 9-3, Iowa State Cyclones at 7-5. This game's so interesting because both these teams had such a disappointing year. Obviously, Iowa State thought they could make the playoffs, could win the Big 12, didn't even get close at 7-5. Clemson was a big favorite to win the ACC, and also, get back in the playoff. And they're 9-3, didn't even get to go to the ACC championship game. Clemson's a 1-point favorite, over under 44. But we got to look at all the opt-outs. That's big in the bowl season. So Iowa State star running back Breece Hall's opted out, along with 2 of their more solid receivers, but it looks like Brock Purdy's going to play. Iowa State will also be without Isheem Young, really good defensive player. He's going to be in the transfer portal. Their starting quarter King and linebacker Eric Horn are all in the transfer portal. Clemson did lose both their coordinators. Obviously, Brent Venables is at OU now. But that's going to be interesting. No news for opt-outs yet for Clemson, but several are expected just because it's Clemson and they've always got guys that go in the first and second round. So we'll have to keep our eye on that. And then also Clemson's top receiver, Justin Ross, is out. He's really been their only threat on offense, especially at the wide receiver position this year, and he's out. That number is so low at 44, you just almost want to take it. But there's just going to be such a limited amount of offensive talent on the field. We'll just have to see what that line looks like as we get close. Let's get to the biggest bowl game maybe of the year. People are saying it. The Alamo Bowl at 8:15, Oregon Ducks at 10-3, and the Oklahoma Sooners at 10-2. It's a huge game. I mean, this is the one that everybody's talking about. Nobody's even talking about the playoff right now. Everybody just wants to hear about the Oregon Ducks and Oklahoma Sooners taking on each other with interim coaches and a bunch of opt-outs. I gave out OU a long time ago. They're 4.5 favorites. I still like that. Over under 60.5. I think it's just a difference in the way the programs are feeling right now. Obviously, OU hiring their new head coach from the Clemson Tigers, Brent Venables, coming back to OU. I think it's just got a lot of people excited in the program, out of the program. Oregon, they're excited to have Dan Lanning too, but it's just a bit different feel because it's kind of more unknown. They don't really know much about this guy, but they're excited to have him in there. Bob Stoops is also the interim coach for OU in this game. It's a revenge game for Bob Stoops. Remember, a long time ago, Oklahoma played at Eugene. There was a really, really bad onside kick that was called Oregon's ball when OU clearly recovered the ball. They changed the way they reviewed plays after that. But there's a ton of opt-outs in this one. So I did want to mention that Brian McClendon is coaching Oregon. I don't even know who that is. I'm going to be real honest. Opt-outs for Oregon. Their defensive end Thibodeau, their wide receiver Devin Williams, and quarterback DJ James. They're in the portal. Thibodeau's obviously going to the draft. He's going to be, one of the top 5 picks probably. For OU, defensive end Nick Benito, defensive lineman Perion Winfrey, defensive lineman Isaiah Thomas. They're all declaring for the draft. None of those guys are going in the top 3 rounds. I mean, I can't be mad at them. It's at the end of the day kind of an exhibition game. It's just an extra game on their knees and legs. So I kind of get it. I kind of get the opt-out, but Jaden Hazelwood and Austin Stogner, that's the wide receiver and a tight end. They both transferred out. Not huge impacts, I think, both in the locker room and on the field. Those guys just kind of had really disappointing years and really, I guess you could say, disappointing careers. I mean, compared to what they were expected to do. Stogner had some good years, had a really bad injury last year, took a long time to come back from. Never has really looked the same. And Jaden Hazelwood had a bad injury as well. It'll be interesting to see how this team looks. But it looks like Caleb Williams is going to play. There's a lot of good vibes. I know Kennedy Brooks, the star running back for OU, is going to play in this one. I like OU here, -4.5. Maybe it's a homer pick, but it's just kind of a feeling of we have to know motivation in these games. Oregon came out and got smashed twice by Utah. OU's going to do that same thing. Bob Stoops loves that physical brand of football. That's exactly what they're going to try to do. I mean, they've already said that practices have been way better. You've heard some leaks coming out of the locker room that they're feeling great about the direction of the program. They've talked to Brent Venables. I think those things matter in these bowl games, and that's why I like the Sooners here. It's not just strictly a homer pick, although it is a little bit. I think I locked this in at like 2.5, OU -2.5, something like that. It was early on before all the opt-out news and stuff. It's interesting now because OU's missing so many guys on that D-line, but that was a bit of a deep group that rotationally kind of dried up a little bit late, but we'll see what they look like against Travis Dye in that running attack for Oregon because they do love to run the ball. It's going to be interesting because Oregon's also taking in transfers. So how does Anthony Brown play at quarterback? How does he feel? Be interesting to keep our eye on the over-under 60.5. We'll see how that line moves, but that's it, guys. That wraps up the show. I appreciate you guys watching. I'm on fade watch right now, so if you are fading me, don't feel bad. I think it's kind of funny, in fact, if you let me know. So best of luck to everyone out there. I appreciate you guys staying locked in. I appreciate all the Coda Cappers out there. Let's get hot in part 2 of the bowl season, and again, be ready for that next podcast coming out on December 30th. It'll be covering all the big ones, all the New Year's Six bowls and things like that. So it'll be jam-packed full. Keep an eye on the Twitter timeline at Potato Gobbler. It's an awesome time over there. I try to follow people back as long as you don't just like tweet a bunch of politics and stuff that I don't like seeing on my timeline. I like positive vibes. So let's keep it positive. Let's win some football games and let's have a great bowl season, guys. Peace.